What if there was a basketball player so addicted to creativity that he could barely bring himself to throw a normal pass? A player whose highlights look more like a magic act than an NBA reel. One flick of the wrist, and the ball lands exactly where it needs to be, as if guided by invisible strings. That's the legend of Jason Williams, a small-town kid turned top-level point guard, known for passes that made crowds gasp and defenders scramble. Yet behind those flashy no-looks and that signature elbow pass, there's an entire journey of near misses, controversies, and one triumphant ring. Why did he insist on playing with such flair, and how did this sometimes get him into deep trouble on and off the court? Let's find out. Belle, West Virginia isn't the first place that comes to mind when you think of basketball prodigies. Tucked away with a population barely over 1,000, it feels like the kind of town where everyone knows everyone else's business, and definitely not a place anyone expects to produce an NBA champion. But DuPont High School, the only high school in Belle, made waves in the mid-1990s thanks to two local legends playing side by side, Jason Williams and Randy Moss. Picture this: Jason, son of a state trooper who literally had the keys to the school gym with unlimited access to run drills and dream up insane passes when no one else was watching. He didn't just practice, he used his downtime to invent entirely new ways to handle the ball. On the court, the synergy between Jason and Randy Moss was so strong that they propelled their small school into a national championship game. It felt like the start of something unstoppable, but even though Jason lit up the scoreboard with 26 points that day, DuPont still lost. It was a soul-crushing defeat, but one that lit a fire within him. This was a taste of how close triumph and heartbreak could be. Little did he know, that feeling of coming so close only to have it slip away would resurface again and again before he ever found his true breakthrough. After high school, Jason set his sights on big-time college hoops. One problem: the coach who recruited him to Providence left for Clemson, and the new coach brought in another prized guard, leaving Jason on the outside looking in. Rather than settle for riding the bench, he found a detour: Fork Union Military Academy, just to keep his options alive. Enter Billy Donovan. At the time, Donovan was an assistant who'd been begging his head coach to sign the scrappy kid from Belle. When Donovan landed the head coaching job at Marshall, he remembered Jason. Unlike other coaches who saw only red flags in Jason's flashy style, Donovan saw genius. He convinced Jason to come to Marshall, but the trouble was far from over. Jason had to sit out a full year due to NCAA rules, giving him more time to obsess over the craft of passing and ball handling. That work paid off when he finally got on the court. Williams led Marshall to a respectable record and followed Donovan once again, this time to Florida. But Jason hated classes. Waking up for early lectures was a chore he simply didn't want to do. When the Gators staff discovered he'd been smoking left-handed cigarettes more than once, they dismissed him from the program. Plenty of players would have been crushed. Jason, however, took it as his second strike. One more slip-up and his entire career might be gone. In a twist that could have come straight from a Hollywood script, the opportunity he needed showed up in the stands, ready to change his life forever. During a Florida game, Nick Anderson of the Orlando Magic caught a glimpse of the fiery point guard wearing number 55. Nick didn't know much about college ball, but what he saw that night left him stunned. A fearless player who dominated not just with scoring, but with his unique gift for threading passes through the narrowest gaps. Nick urged his agent to sign Jason, which opened doors for pre-draft NBA workouts. Suddenly, Jason Williams, the kid from Belle, was on every scout's radar. Most experts still didn't know what to make of him. The Sacramento Kings kept their intentions quiet, even telling reporters they weren't interested. Then came draft night in 1998. With the 7th pick, Sacramento shocked everyone by selecting Jason Williams. Fans and analysts wondered, was he truly franchise material or merely a sideshow? The Kings had been a struggling franchise, but head coach Rick Adelman delivered a surprising message. If you come down the court and try a behind-the-back pass that sails out of bounds, don't sweat it. Next time, try it left-handed. In that environment, Jason's flair flourished. One moment he'd be crossing up Hall of Fame defenders, the next moment launching a pass that defied logic. Some nights the turnovers piled up. He averaged nearly 4 a game, but he never let it break his spirit. Teammates like Vlade Divac and Chris Webber needed time to adjust, occasionally taking a pass off the side of the head, but they soon realized they had found the NBA's version of a playground genius. The fans loved it. White Chocolate, as he was dubbed by a team marketing agent, quickly became a phenomenon. His jersey flew off the shelves, outselling some of the game's biggest names. And with the renewed spark Jason and Webber brought, the Kings made the playoffs. only to run into John Stockton's Utah Jazz or Shaq and Kobe's Lakers, both well-oiled machines used to crushing upstarts. Jason's high-risk style translated to high turnovers in critical moments, and the Kings bowed out in early playoff rounds. Over time, the team's front office saw a glaring need for a more controlled point guard. In a jarring move, they sent Jason to the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for Mike Bibby. It might have seemed like a demotion, but the next phase of his career would force him to evolve and prove he was more than just a highlight reel. Landing in Memphis introduced Jason to a new challenge. He joined a young, losing franchise that had just relocated from Vancouver, but the Grizzlies had one major piece working in their favor: Jerry West, the legendary executive and fellow West Virginian, who believed in building from the ground up. West brought in head coach Hubie Brown, who hadn't coached in the NBA for 16 years. Some called the hire a desperate move, but Hubie had something the ragtag Grizzlies needed: discipline. Right away, Hubie held nothing back. He barked at players for mental lapses and demanded accountability across the board. Jason responded to that in a way not everyone expected. He thrived under strict guidance. He slashed his turnovers, learned to read defenses more deeply, and found new ways to lead the offense. He didn't abandon the pizzazz completely. Fans could still count on a behind-the-back rocket pass every now and then, but he became more adept at choosing the perfect moment. Slowly, Memphis crawled out from rock bottom. They started setting small goals, winning certain stretches of games, improving defensive rotations, eliminating wasted possessions. In 2003 to 2004, Jason helped the Grizzlies win 50 games for the first time in franchise history, propelling them to their first ever playoff appearance. Though they were quickly dispatched by the San Antonio Spurs, everyone could see the seeds of something special, and Jason's transformation was a huge part of it. He had gone from high-risk passing machine to a seasoned floor general. Unfortunately, the fairy tale in Memphis didn't last forever. After Hubie Brown stepped down for health reasons, Mike Fratello took over. Tension sprang up almost immediately. Jason found himself clashing with Fratello's strategies and personality. Despite another postseason appearance, the Grizzlies were swept yet again. With the team's chemistry at risk, it was clear that Jason Williams would soon be on the move. The question was, to where? Fate had a surprising answer, one that came via phone call from a future Hall of Famer who was about to transform Jason's life in a massive way. Midway through 2005, Jason Williams was relaxing in Orlando when his phone rang. On the other line was Shaquille O'Neal, fresh off a blockbuster trade from the Lakers to the Miami Heat. Shaq and the rising star Dwyane Wade had come up just short of an NBA title in 2005, and the big man knew they needed a specific kind of point guard. Someone adept at distributing the ball, balancing a locker room of big personalities, and keeping defenses honest. Jason, older, wiser, but still white chocolate, would fit the bill. Then came the massive 5-team, 13-player deal that put Jason in a Miami uniform. Joining him in the move was his Memphis teammate James Posey. Early on, success didn't come easily. Miami struggled under head coach Stan Van Gundy, who wrestled with how to manage so many talented but strong-willed players. After 21 inconsistent games, Pat Riley stepped down from the executive suite and assumed the coaching role himself, determined to right the ship. Riley pulled Jason aside and said in so many words, "Keep the flair for when it helps us, but remember you're here to distribute." If that meant sacrificing highlight passes for simpler, high-percentage plays, so be it. Jason embraced this narrower role. The payoff came during the 2006 Eastern Conference playoffs, particularly in a do-or-die Game 6 against the Detroit Pistons. With Shaq held in check, the team desperately needed someone else to step up. That night, Jason poured in bucket after bucket, scoring 10 straight points at one stretch and leading Miami to a blowout victory. The Heat advanced to the NBA Finals for the first time ever. Facing the Dallas Mavericks in the finals, they fell into an ominous 0-2 hole. Doubters were everywhere, calling the Heat finished. But in Game 3, fueled by Pat Riley's motivational tactics, and perhaps by Jason's knack for delivering a momentum-swinging pass or layup at the perfect time, Miami mounted a staggering comeback. They won Game 3 by the narrowest of margins, then rolled on to capture the next 3 games. In Game 6, Jason dished out crucial assists, culminating in a euphoric victory that made him, at long last, an NBA champion. You might think a championship caps off the perfect story, but sometimes the aftermath of success is even more turbulent than the climb. Winning an NBA title is supposed to catapult a team to even greater heights. Instead, the Miami Heat found themselves stumbling right out of the gate the following season. In their ring ceremony game, they lost by over 40 points, the worst such defeat for a defending champion on ring night. Pat Riley seethed. He injured his own knee by kicking a door in frustration. The tension spilled over. Riley and Jason clashed over tardiness and practice habits, and Shaq soon found himself at odds with the coach as well. The internal friction was so severe that by 2007, Shaq was traded away. Miami devolved from champs into a lottery team. Meanwhile, Jason's body was breaking down. After the 2007 to 2008 season ended without a playoff berth, hardly any team seemed interested in his services. The Los Angeles Clippers signed him for the veteran minimum, but living expenses in LA were so high that Jason would have practically lost money by staying. He ended up stepping away from the game. Officially, he retired, but everyone knew it was partially a strategy to wiggle free of the contract. A year later, he made his triumphant return to the NBA, this time with the Orlando Magic, who needed a reliable backup point guard. Despite being in his mid-30s, Jason showed flashes of his old brilliance, tossing pinpoint lobs to Dwight Howard and feeding sharpshooters like JJ Redick and Rashard Lewis. He even managed to play all 82 regular season games at age 34, a remarkable feat for someone once dogged by conditioning questions. Orlando advanced all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2010, but fell short to a surging Boston Celtics squad. At least Jason proved he still belonged. Unfortunately, that success was short-lived. Near the end of 2010 to 2011, injuries and quick tempers got the better of him. He was waived by the Magic, then had a brief reunion with the Memphis Grizzlies. His body simply couldn't keep up with the demands anymore, and when that season ended, Jason Williams, White Chocolate, closed the book on his NBA career for good. From the Trailer Park Gym in Belle, West Virginia, to lifting the Larry O'Brien Trophy in Miami, Jason Williams lived a basketball life defined by contradictions. He was a showman who learned when to hold back. He was a small-town underdog who became a global icon. He was a guy who seemed to throw the hardest, wildest passes, yet often did so for the simplest reason: they just worked. Watching him, you couldn't help but wonder if he was physically incapable of tossing the ball in an ordinary way, or if he just discovered something the rest of us never saw. So does White Chocolate belong among the greatest point guards in history? That's a debate that can go on forever. Some point to his single championship and highlight reel wizardry. Others note the turnovers and a single All-Star Weekend cameo rather than multiple All-Star nods. Whatever your take, you can't deny that Jason Williams changed the NBA's aesthetic. He proved that flair and fundamentals aren't always opposites. That artistry, properly harnessed, can lead all the way to a title. And here's a fun side note: the player Jason replaced on the Orlando Magic was Rafer Alston, the only player to climb from street ball legend to the NBA. If Jason Williams was the unstoppable creative force, Rafer, skip to my Lou, Alston was the master of improvisation from the outdoor courts of Rucker Park. It's a reminder that the game we love can spark brilliance in the most unexpected places.